Okay. MVP, which is, before we get into it, let's just have a quick chat about how the MVP discussion has ruined this NBA season.
I wouldn't go
Like,
that far, but it has been annoying.
it's been annoying because it's sucked up all of the energy and discourse, not all of it, but so much of it when instead of celebrating, in my mind, two players having incredible seasons that almost always win a player the MVP. It's just when incredible seasons overlap, so only one can win. Um, and I think our top two would both be Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid as being the two best players in the league this season. I wish the conversation was like what we are seeing is awesome and great instead of how can we just like have arguments about how the other guy is bad? Because that's basically what it has devolved into, where it's like it's not like this guy is great, but this guy's slightly greater at this thing or slightly greater just overall. It's like, oh, well, like he can't do any of that. He's a bad passer. He's a bad defender. He's a bad teammate. He looks doughy. He's got a bunch of cuts on his arm. What the fuck is up with that? But
Yeah,
yeah,
it got too emotionally driven somehow, man, and people got very worked up about it. Like the race angle came into play, which honestly, I think it's a fair point to say. Like, I wonder some subconscious racial bias creeps into the voting. Like that's something we should be talking about. But it just sucks how it like on a basketball level, both these guys are having incredible MVP caliber seasons, and I think also a factor is that people see it as this arbitration on advanced stats versus the eye test or whatever, and it's really stupid, man. Like
yeah.
Nikola Jokic is incredible at basketball, but it's all these made up acronyms say he's the MVP. Like, no, man, he's the best passing big of all time. He's a like he can score at will. Like he's clearly an incredible offensive
I
basketball player.
know.
Like, have you
It's
watched a game? And he's not even my MVP, but
Yeah, but like that's the whole thing is that like have you I do think Jokic suffers from the have you really because he's not a guy where like if you watch highlights of him, you're like, "Oh yeah, this guy is great," but he's not like physically dominating guys even though if you watch the games, he is
he
physically
is.
dominating guys cuz he gets the ball and he just moves you, but he's not like doing the nimble stuff. I think this is how I would say about both of them. Nikola Jokic is a 7 footer who is a happens to be the best point guard in the league. And Joel Embiid is a 7 footer who happens to be the best shooting guard in the league. That I mean, like I think that's why one they're so good, but like that's what we're watching on offense is the best point guard and the
Yeah.
best shooting guard in the league happen to be 7 footers. And I do think people prefer to watch a shooting guard cook than a point guard cook because as much as we love Chris Paul, there's not that same like when you're trying to feel good about basketball, you're not like, let me go type in Chris Paul highlights and it's like, oh, whoa, well executed pick and roll, baby. It's like it doesn't have the same thing as like, oh shit, that dunk and crossover is pretty nice.
All right. So without further ado, who's your choice? I think I know the answer, but
Yeah, so the answer is in my mind, it's Nikola Jokic for a few reasons. One, all of the acronyms agree he's been by far the best player in the NBA once again. And to me, if they were closer, it'd be different, but they're not. He is the best offensive player, I think, in basketball. He's maybe the best passer. And if you want to say someone else is a better passer, I'd say sure, but they're not much better, right? He's one of the best scorers in the NBA. And I know the volume isn't incredibly high, but part of that's because he is such a good passer. It's like, well, why would I take a like Jokic could average 35 points a game on above average efficiency, I think if he wanted to. He just doesn't want to because he'd rather his team have a better offense. So these are some of the things that Nikola Jokic leads the NBA in. Win shares, win shares per 48, box plus minus, offensive box plus minus, defensive box plus minus, VORP, Raptor component, which is a rate metrics, and Raptor war, dunks and threes estimated plus minus, and estimated wins. And he also leads the league in on off plus minus net rating at plus 22.7 points per 100 possessions. The Nuggets are plus 22.7 points per 100 possessions better when he's on the court than when he's off. And to kind of hammer home how impactful he is as a player, the guys who are second, third, and fifth are Michael Porter Jr., Kentavious Caldwell Pope, Aaron Gordon. What all three of those guys have in common? They spend a lot of time on the court with Nikola Jokic, and no one's out here thinks they're driving that bus. All right. He's also first in true shooting percentage. Everyone else that's around him are, I just catch lobs and dunk it. Jokic takes a fuckload of mid-range jumpers, right? Like, this dude is a real multi-level scorer. He's second in assist percentage by like 1% behind like Tyrese Halliburton. He's second in defensive rebound percentage. He's 34th in steal percentage, which is first for a center. That's why he's the MVP, because I just listed all of the things that say he's the best player in the league. And at a certain point, I just go, holy shit, like maybe we're overthinking this by saying all these other things.
Okay, so here's my counter position, right? It's a two-way game, baby. And I know that the metrics say that Jokic is like a good defensive player, but I do not think he is. I think that you said it yourself best, is that it's the combined defensive rebounding percentage and steal percentage skew the metrics. When realistically, we know this guy is a below average rim protector and absolutely brutal in space, honestly. Like, the food on the perimeter, walking,
All centers
talking,
are
living,
almost all
breathing food. Almost, but Embiid is he'll
is food.
survive, and he's an outstanding rim protector.
So here's the thing. I was digging in these numbers, and I wasn't looking for this. I was doing this for defensive player of the year. The difference between Embiid and Jokic in the rim protection is incredibly small.
Well, what metric are you using?
So I was using NBA.com, right? And it was defensive dashboard, contest defended field goals, 6 feet and closer, right? Jokic defends 8.6, allows a 65.2% field goal percentage on those shots. Joel Embiid, 8.1, 63.2. And that actually is what completely convinced me to go with Jokic, because Jokic pops in like deflections. Like, he's one of the few centers in the league that's like in like the top 10 ish range for like deflections. And that when I saw it, I was like, I'll say this, Embiid is a better defender, but like Embiid also isn't a better defender all of the time, right? Like, and like I think one of the reasons why Jokic's rim protection numbers aren't as good, and the same reason why Embiid's aren't as good as they could be, is that these guys are offensive hubs, and like they don't want to get in foul trouble, and they're fucking tired. I just, as soon as I saw that, I was like, you know what, I'm not even gonna like do the like, Embiid is a better defender when he wants to be. He's just also an offensive hub, so he can't be a better defender, you know, all of the time in the way that is like capable. Like I think obviously like upper tier, yeah. And so like that to me like just completely changed my mind. And because we both know, we watch it, right? Like Embiid, when he wants to be an elite rim protector, is an elite rim protector, but he also doesn't want to be an elite rim protector all the time, because that third foul right there would be costly, right?
Yeah, but
Like,
Jokic can't. He cannot be that, right? So,
I don't
like,
care. It's not about what you can do. It's about what you did do.
yeah, but Embiid does it at times throughout the season, and he does it when it's needed, right? And
I,
that's value.
I'm not saying that he's not a better defender and didn't provide more value than Jokic. I'm just saying that I think the supposed gap between the two on defense, I don't think is as large in terms of what they produced on the court this season than is made out. I know what the gap is in terms of what they can do is fucking large, but I think that's what people view it as. Like, well, what can he do, and what can Jokic do on defense? I agree. That gap is pretty fucking large. But what did they do this season is really the question. Because I agree with you. It's like, it's going to a playoff series. Who would you rather have as your defensive anchor? It's not a complicated
No,
situation.
it's not. And I think this is part of what, like, Okay, so this would be Jokic's third consecutive MVP award.
Yes.
I understand that he is definitely the best regular season player in the league. I don't know. Then in that case, I say throw the award in the trash. To be honest with you, because it's just
Hmm.
like we're saying this guy's by far the best player in the league when he's clearly not the best player in the league. Like that's what that communicates to me. Is like this is by far the best player in the NBA. He's the first player since the '80s to go back to back to back. I just can't get behind it. Even though this is probably a good case,
No, but I
it's
agree.
certainly a good case.
Look, he's not going to win it. Embiid's going to win it, and I'm not going to be pissed if Embiid
Let's
wins
go,
it because
baby. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Embiid's obviously an incredible player, and like this is what I was kind of getting at when I was bringing up that defensive stuff. Is that like I think the reality is that Jokic is one of these guys where it's like he's a regular season wins machine, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's the best playoff wins machine. Now, granted, he's been incredibly good in the playoffs, and like I don't think the Nuggets making it to the conference finals once when Embiid's never done that is an indictment on him. But I just for me it's like this: like, do you think Jokic is a better offensive player than Embiid?
Yeah, I do. As great as Embiid is on that end of the floor, Jokic is a combined shot creator slash playmaker, and Embiid really creates for himself significantly more than he creates for others.
Yeah, yeah. And so for me, I'm just like, okay, cool. And I assumed when I was going to look at the tracking numbers it was going to be clear that Embiid was like significantly better on defense this season, and that just didn't show up, which to me was a big surprise but like at the same time, he's got like a 37% usage or something. Like, how much defense can you expect him to play? All right, let's talk about three straight MVPs. Why shouldn't someone win three straight MVPs?
Okay, so it's not that somebody shouldn't be able to win back to back to back MVPs, three consecutive MVPs. I'm not that's not my case, right? I put it this way: it feels like there have been players throughout history who deserve MVP every year, but we say, well, we can't just give it to them every year. Voter fatigue sets in, right? But so then I'm like, why isn't voter fatigue setting in here? Like, I guess I'm looking at historic precedent. How come LeBron James never went back to back to back? He was clearly the best player in the NBA, like every year of his prime ever, right? And realistically, Giannis probably at this point has earned some back to back to back consideration, right? Uh, I just it just doesn't sit well with me when Nikola Jokic gets that. It doesn't help that the last guy to get it was Larry Bird either, to be honest. But like that's
Yeah,
not
that's
super important. But it doesn't sit that well. You know, it's
also
like
Larry
okay,
Bird
so
was a dog. Larry Bird
like
was an absolute
when a
fucking
white
beast.
dude has a case for best player in the league, we just give them MVP every year, I guess.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand that concern. So one of the things that I think is that like I understand what you're saying about the historical precedent, but is that historical precedent worth keeping? Because both of us know Michael Jordan should have won three straight MVPs at one point in his career. Both of us know LeBron James should have won three straight MVPs at some point in his career, right? Like, so what we're saying is, because the writers were being stupid in the late 80s, early 90s, and were pissed off at LeBron for going to Miami, and they just decided they're going to give it to Derrick Rose when that was obviously a horrible decision. Like, not like it was an indefensible decision outside the, well, his team had more wins. Well, Lottie fucking da,
Yeah.
right? Can we move past the his team had more wins stuff? So, like, that to me is actually why I I get frustrated with the like, but what is this saying? What this is saying isn't saying anything about Jokic. It's actually saying, why do we want to uphold bad decisions by our forefathers? Like, that's like kind of
But
how I view it. It's like, let's break the precedent because someone else should probably be able to win three straight MVPs when they fucking deserve it, right? Like, I just,
here's my thing. I think
yeah.
that's a fair argument, but I would like the next player to win three MVPs to be the best player in the NBA, like hands down, bar none, the best player in the NBA, like LeBron was and like Giannis has been, right? So for me, I'm like Jokic just does not clear that extremely high bar for me, right? I'm not saying he doesn't have a case or that it would be ridiculous for the league to give it to him either,
Also, not
but
that he doesn't have a case as the best player in the league, right? Like, if you might not agree with that, but like, if someone made that case, you wouldn't be like,
Sure.
what the fuck are you talking
Absolutely.
about?
Absolutely. There are three players you can make that case for, I think.
Yes.
Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis. I think Giannis is the best player in the world, but he's just not the MVP right now. So let's wrap it up. It's a good discussion. I think we both
Yeah.
agree that it's like, yeah, like there are really two legitimate MVP candidates this year. I don't even want to lean on the back thing because really it's sort of it's a separate discussion, right?
Yeah.
For the defensive ability is my main position, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And the defensive thing is weird to me because like I know Embiid's a better defender, but it doesn't, and like certain metrics say he's a better defender pretty substantially than Jokic, but not all of them do. And so like that to me like was like I'm not even entertaining Embiid if the like rim protection numbers are like relatively, or like the paint area restricted area numbers are like relatively similar. I think the main difference, and I think the thing that some metrics have a hard time picking up is, and I think you'll like this concept, is Jokic doesn't prevent shots from being attempted, while Embiid
Yeah.
will. And I think like
Rim
that,
deterrence.
yeah, and I think like that's something that's like hard to pick up sometimes because, and like it's one of the things that makes it's when they talk about professional soccer, like a lot of the best center backs in the world who are the best defenders in the world, like they don't rack up a bunch of like tackles or interceptions or aerial duels. One part of that's because their team has the ball all the time, but part of it's because what makes you a good defender is that someone's not even thinking about playing the ball in your area because you're in the right spot and they can't. Like it's just not even a good idea. And I think that like that's the thing with Jokic where it's like if you see him there, are you stopping? Like, are you not going to take that shot? And Embiid, it's like, yeah. So it's like, how many shots were not taken because of Embiid's defense? And it's like, that to me is like where the gap probably is. And that's super hard to quantify. And so I think that would be my, if I was trying to make a pro Embiid defense argument,